Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Trek New Horizons tutorial with Cornish Ratbeard and myself. Today we are going to be looking at Empire starting conditions. Before we begin, remember if you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to both of our channels for new Star Trek New Horizons content and guides and tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to be talking about the Beta Quadrant and looking at the starting conditions for the empires there. The Beta Quadrant is defined as coming straight down from the galactic core and directly to east or right of the galactic core. So we will be looking from the Fen Domar down to the Vulcan High Command in this episode. So the Fen Domar States start in the Fen Domar system, and they start with 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. They also start with the planet Fen, which is their empire capital. They start with a base selection of the buildings that are available to generic empires. So all generic empires start with the same basic set of buildings. They also have 6 city districts already built, which is again standard. They have 20 Fen Domar pops, and they also have defensive armies on their planet. They have a single system start. Moving down, the next one is another unawakened empire, of which there are 5 in the game, called the Quomar Planetary Alliance. We see them briefly in one episode of Star Trek Voyager. The Quomar Planetary Alliance has a multi-system start, however there is only one that is colonized, which is the Quomar system, which has the planet Quomar, which is their empire capital. Because they are an unawakened species or a fallen empire, they start with special buildings on their planets. For example, an ancient palace, which gives them lots of districts, or max possible districts and some jobs, 2 affluent centers to produce supplies, 1 nourishment center for food, 1 dimensional fabricator, which creates special buildings, 1 class 4 singularity for energy, 1 autoforge for alloys, 1 master archive for research, and 4 sky domes, which help with housing and amenities. All of their pops are Quomarian, and they do have defensive armies on this planet. The next empire we'll take a look at is the Zakdorn Comity. We see the Zakdorn in Star Trek The Next Generation. The Zakdorn start with a single system, and they have 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. Their home planet, Zakdorn, features 20 Zakdorn pops and a selection of the base buildings, as well as 6 city districts that we see for all generic empires. All of their pops are Zakdorn, and they have no defensive armies to start with. Next is the Flaxian Hegemony, which start in the Flaxia system. They also start with 3 patrol frigates. Those patrol frigates look like this. Also, they start on the planet of Flaxos, here. So they do have defensive armies, as well as 20 Flaxian pops. All of the pops here, all 20 are Flaxian, and they again also start with the generic buildings and the 6 city districts. Next, we have the Morali States. The Morali States start in the Zakdorn system. They also start with 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. They start on the planet Moralis, which is their empire capital. They have the same buildings as all generic empires, as well as 6 city districts. They have 20 pops, all of whom are Morali. And they also have defensive armies. Next, we have the Husnock Ascendency. This is another example of a multi-system start. The Husnock Ascendency have 2 systems that are colonized. The first is the Boral system with the Burin Prime colony, which has 6 pops, 5 Burin and 1 Husnock. There are no defensive armies, and they only start with an administrative complex and a large hydroponic field on this colony. On their empire capital in Hus I, they have the Hus planet, which is their empire capital. Again, they start with the same buildings as all generic empires, 6 city districts. They have 20 pops, 18 of whom are Husnock and 2 Burin, and they do have defensive armies. Additionally, they start with 6 patrol frigates, and their patrol frigates look like this. Next, we have the Holy Order of Kinshaya. They start in the Janalwa system. They have 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. They also, their Empire capital, they start with the same generic buildings. However, they do also have a local garrison. They start with 6 city districts, 20 Kinshaya pops, and defensive armies to defend that planet. Next, we have the Suliban Cabal. They start in the Exile system on a space station, so they also start on a space station rather than a planet. Their space station is called Haven, and they have some special buildings which space stations do. They have a lot of the same buildings as the generic start. However, they also have a temporal communication center because this empire does have a history with using temporal technology. They also have 6 residential area districts and 2 hydroponics districts as well. They start with 22 pops, all of whom are from the Suliban species, and they do have defensive armies to defend their starbase. They also have 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. Next, we have the sovereign dynasties of Krios. They start here in the Krios system. Again, they also have 3 patrol frigates, and they start on Krios Prime. They have 21 pops, all of whom are Krios. They also have defensive armies. They also start with the same generic buildings as all generic empires, and 6 city districts as well. Next, we have the Valtese Senate. The Valtese Senate sort in the Vault system, and they start on the planet Vault Minor. Again, same buildings as generic ones, same number of city districts. They have 20 Valtese pops, and they do have defensive armies. Also, this is what their patrol frigates look like, and they start with 3. Next, we have the Gorn Hegemony. The Gorn Hegemony start in the Gorn system. They start with 3 patrol frigates that look like this. And they start on the planet Gornar. The planet Gornar looks like this. They have all of the same generic buildings and 6 city districts. They have 20 Gorn pops. And they also have defensive armies as well. Next, we have the Klingons. The Klingons have 2 colonies, the Borath colony and the Gorath colony. The Borath colonies starts here, and they start with the Borath Monastery, which produces time crystals because of its relation with time technology. There are 3 Klingon pops here, nothing else has been built. 3 Klingon pops, and there are no defensive armies on Borath. Moving on, we have the Gorath colony. The Gorath colony has 6 Klingon pops, no defensive armies, and starts with an administrative complex, large-scale hydroponic fields, and alloy foundries as well. Moving on to the capital system, so Kronos, Klingons start on their empire capital, the planet of Kronos, and they have a selection of the buildings to produce the same resources as generic empires, but they also have some special buildings, such as the Order of the Batleth headquarters. There's also the Chamber of Heroes, and the High Council chambers as well. There are 26 Klingon pops here, and there are defensive armies. The Klingons also start with 4 Birds of Prey vessels, which look like this. The next empire is the Metron Consortium. This is an unawakened empire as well. They start in the Metron system. On the planet Metron, similar to the Quomar that we saw earlier in this tutorial, they have the same buildings. They also have 22 Metron pops, and they do have defensive armies. Additionally, they start with 3 fleets. This fleet has 5 flagships, so the flagship class looks like this, and it has a total fleet power of 395.7 thousand. We then have the second fleet, which is comprised of assault vessels. They look like this, 394.1 thousand fleet power. Finally, there is a third fleet here, made up of interdictor vessels, which look like this. They have a total fleet power of 285.8 thousand. The next empire is the Yridian League. They start here in Yridia Prime. They start with the base buildings that all generic empires have. However, they are an economic empire, so they also start with a banking complex. They have 6 city districts. They have 16 Yridian pops, and there are defensive armies. Additionally, there are also 3 patrol frigates, which look like this. Next, we have the Nausiacaan Tribes. They are here on the planet Nausicaa, which is their starting planet. They have the same generic buildings, 6 city districts. They start with 20 Nausiacaan pops, and they have defensive armies to defend Nausicaa. Additionally, they start with 3 patrol frigates that look like this. So the next empire we have is the Cheronite Commission. The Cheronite Commission start in the 83 Leonis system. They start with 3 patrol frigates that look like this. And they are a generic empire, so they start with the same starting buildings, 6 city districts. They have 20 Cheronite pops, and they have defensive armies to defend Cheron Prime. Next, we have the Romulans. The Romulans have a multi-system start, and they start with 3 different colonies. The first is the Eightfold Star system, which starts with the Aya colony. There are 3 Romulan pops here, no defensive armies, and it starts with a selection of the base buildings. There is also the Romi system, which starts with the Romi colony. There is a large-scale hydroponics field and an administration complex. There are 4 Romulan pops, and there are no defensive armies. There is the Terex colony, which is in the exact same position, so same buildings, also 4 Romulans, no defensive armies. And then we have the Romulus system. The Romulus system has 2 planets. There is the planet Remus, which has 7 Romulan and 7 Reman pops. There are some defensive armies, and it has some buildings. It has the administrative complex, a dilithium mine, mining network, a policing system, a life support dome, an entertainment center, and alloy foundries. Also in the Romulus system is the planet of Romulus itself, which is the Empire capital. Here we have 26 Romulan pops. We also have similar buildings to the generic empires, but we also have some unique ones, such as the Romulan Navy headquarters. There is also the Tal Shiar headquarters. And there are also 8 city districts that have been built already. The Romulans start with 4 patrol frigates, which you can see here. Continuing on, we have the Bolian League. The Bolian League start in the Bolaris system, and they have 3 patrol frigates, as you can see here. They also have the planet Boliax in the system, which is their capital. They are an economic empire, meaning that they have the same generic buildings as other generic empires, but they also have the Bank of Bolius headquarters, which is a unique building for the Bolians, as well as a banking complex. They start with 23 Bolian pops, and they have armies to defend Boliax. Next we have the Andorian Empire. They start here in the Andorian system, which is also called the Procyon system, and they have 3 patrol frigates that look like this. They also have the planet Andoria. The planet Andoria has 20 pops, 18 of whom are Andorian, and 2 of whom are of the Anar species. There are no defensive armies, and they start with most of the same buildings as generic empires. However, they also have the Andorian Art Academy, useful for research. They also start with 6 city districts. Next, we have the Vulcans. The Vulcans have 2 systems. They have the Pugem system, which is a colony system with the Pugem Monastery. It starts with only the P'Jem Monastery, and there are 4 Vulcan pops, and no defensive armies. There's also 1 city district that has been built. Apart from P'Jem, there is also the 40 Eridani system, which is where we can find the planet of Vulcan. Before we do that, there are 4 patrol frigates that the Vulcans start with. They look like this. On the planet Vulcan, we see that some of the buildings are the same, however there are some unique buildings, such as the Vulcan High Command. There's also the Vulcan Science Academy as well. A temple has also been built on the planet Vulcan. Next we have the Orions. The Orion Trade Union starts in the Orion system, and they start on the planet of Vondem. They have 22 pops, all of whom are Orion, 6 city districts, and this is also an economic empire, so they start with the same generic buildings as a generic empire. However, they also have the Orion Institute of Cosmology, which aids in research, and they also have a banking complex that has already been built. All of the pops, of which there are 22, are Orion, and there are 2 defensive armies as well. And finally, we have in the Beta Quadrant the Sonar Command. The Sonar Command start in the Sonar system, and they start on the planet Sonar Prime. They start with 2 defensive armies and 19 pops, 2 of whom are Tarlac, 2 of whom are Elora, and 15 of whom are Sonar. They also start with the same base buildings, however they do have 1 additional unique building, which is the Sonar Command. They also start with 6 city districts as well. This is an overview of the Beta Quadrant here and the placement for each.
Well guys, thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, make sure you give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to both of our channels. If you find you're struggling at all with Star Trek New Horizons, then please do check out our tips, tricks and tutorials playlist linked in the description below and at the end of this video.
We also have a Discord server we call The Collective. We discuss everything from these videos to Star Trek in general to what we're having for Sunday lunch. We also make our announcements there as well, and organise multiplayer games that you can play with us. You can join our collective using the link in the description below.
The collective must grow.
Alright, that's it from us for now.
See you next time.
Make it so.